When it comes to iconic performances or present-day memes, Jack Nicholson defined the character known as Jack Torrance.
Here's Johnny!
However, it's long documented it wasn't the vision Stephen King had in his novel. Stanley Kubrick had his own ideas on how to adapt the story and its characters, with very abbreviated, almost superficial references to the source material. In this video, I'm going to go beyond just comparing the film to the book. I'm comparing the different visions between Stanley Kubrick and Stephen King. The best way to do that is referencing the ABC miniseries that was produced and written by King to represent his novel. Besides, it makes better visuals. Make sure to like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Now, let's compare the different visions Stanley Kubrick and Stephen King had in mind for Jack Torrance. The father. Jack Torrance has a special bond with his son Danny. Jack tries to improve the lives of his family while making up for some rather poor choices in his past. The novel builds up to this as Jack redeems himself thanks to a telepathic connection. Jack works the boilers to the point of destroying the Overlook, and Danny runs out with Jack's first and last written manuscript. Danny is always keeping an eye on his father. It may be he's a nosy kid, or possibly they share not only a bond, but are tethered by the Shining's powers. This is an important element of Jack, aware of his own weaknesses. How Kubrick displayed Jack's relationship with Danny is very brief and almost farcical. We see it in the bedroom. Jack is semi-lucid, and he tells Danny he would never hurt him. First-time viewers may take this moment as reassurance, reinforcing the idea Jack is a family man before his tragic fall. But multiple viewings could have seen Jack beginning to slip under the influences of the hotel, and he's more or less taunting his son. Jack also explains how he loves Danny to the spirit bartender Lloyd. As he says quite eloquently,
I love the little son of a bitch.
That makes quite a greeting card. This line of dialogue is more Jack being defensive because he continues explaining how much his son and Wendy are obstacles in his life. Kubrick's vision of their connection is non-existent. Danny doesn't look over his father's shoulders through clairvoyance. He doesn't openly check in on his dad's employment status or drinking situation. While he does have dreams and out-of-body experiences due to Jack's future, the visions are abstract, and he keeps them to himself. What Kubrick and King have in common about Jack, the father, is they did spend their final moments together. The two symbolisms couldn't be more different. Kubrick has Jack, the crazy man, chase his son with an axe before getting lost in a maze. King has Jack return as a Force ghost at Danny's high school graduation with a meme that never happened. The husband. Character development couldn't be further apart between Kubrick and King. The irony is, each reached the same point in the third act. The differences are how they got there. Kubrick's vision of Jack, the husband, is a very toxic one. There's a facade of normalcy at first. The couple, Jack and Wendy, seem to be a level-headed, normal, but not too spectacular couple. However, we get a glimpse of Wendy's nervousness when she talks about Jack. Kubrick portrays their marital relationship into snarkiness, contempt, before it's a free fall into madness. The apex of the madness comes during the infamous staircase and bat scene. It's very interesting that this was pretty much predictable, not only because of Jack's troubling attitude, but Danny's vision that the caretaker of the Overlook would be fated to correct family members. King's vision of the marriage was much different. They were a loving couple, acknowledging some challenges: Jack's drinking problem, his unemployment problem, their money problem. After the stress the hotel played on Jack, an unruly son, and free bottle of Jack Daniels, which didn't help, he became a different man, a possessed man. Like Kubrick's film, Jack Torrance won't be nominated for Best Husband of the Year. What we end up getting from Kubrick is a man who was always on the edge of violence. From King, Jack's different. A passive sloth of a human being who drank a magic potion and became a killer zombie. Not anything resembling the first two acts. The writer. No better can we see Kubrick's efficiency in creating a character attribute than how he made Jack a writer. Give the man a typewriter and snap, he's an author. However, if you listen carefully, Jack mentions his writing plans once, to Ullman.
I'm outlining a new writing project, and 5 months of peace is just what I want.
It's only an outline. His plans don't make it clear it will be a complete work. We discover he didn't have any good ideas.
Any ideas yet?
Lots of ideas. No good ones.
And he welcomed the 5 months of isolation with no plan. He goofs off, stares into nothingness, and Wendy later learns all the typing was mere trash, although the title is pretty catchy. King, on the other hand, tells us Jack's complete backstory. He was a teacher at Stovington. A dry drunk experience had him teaching by the ways of the fist, which ultimately leads him to try out a career in writing. Jack comes to the Overlook with plans to write a play before pivoting to an historical manuscript about the history of the hotel, destined for coffee tables. Jack's history and hopes for the future is all fleshed out, and likely unnecessary. In Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, there are 2 Easter eggs that could hint on Jack's past or just a homage to the book. We see Jack wear a Stovington shirt. Wendy makes a passing reference to the doctor that Jack was teaching in Vermont. Jack does say earlier he was a teacher to make ends meet, but considered himself a writer that didn't pay a dime.
Formerly a school teacher.
What line of work are you in now?
I'm a writer. Teaching's been more or less a way of making ends meet.
He doesn't share why he quit teaching. Hint, it may look something like this. The Drinker. King makes no doubt that Jack Torrance has a drinking problem. He attends AA meetings, has an AA sponsor, and carries the good book. We are not only told exposition but see flashbacks, multiple flashbacks of what happens to Jack when he touches the bottle. While Jack openly boasts he has kicked the habit, secretly he desires the spirit. Kubrick, on the other hand, showed Jack had a problem with drinking. The A word is never mentioned. Only through Wendy do we learn Jack had cut himself off from the bottle. Unlike King's version, Kubrick has Jack make a rather terse and unapologetic comment.
We don't drink.
It is us, the audience, who presumed there was something more behind his many months on the wagon. This Jack never admitted he had a problem, and he makes a wish to trade his soul for a drink. An evil spirit appears, offering spirits on the rocks. What both had in common? Their drinks kicked off a downward spiral, revealing who they were inside. King's Jack returned to the bottom as an unreliable drunkard who traded his soul metaphorically. Kubrick's Jack made his Faustian bargain out loud. In return, he became the man he always wanted to be, free, uninhibited, and homicidal. The Caretaker. For a 2-hour film, it shouldn't be a surprise Kubrick didn't spend time on nuances caretaking for a hotel shuttered for 5 winter months. The truth is, we see Jack do nothing, and Wendy spends roughly 22 seconds looking after the boilers, the kind that doesn't blow up. This makes Jack's speech about his contractual obligation look more sarcastic than the lawyer-like seriousness. Although Jack doesn't show he loves the Overlook, he does say it.
I fell in love with it right away. It was as though I'd been here before.
While he seems not to earn the title of caretaker ad infinitum, he is granted it. The position is more of a spiritual one, with a contract longer than a lifetime. Stephen King made Jack into a roofer, boiler maintenance man, as well as the furniture guardian. His love of the Overlook and its history is made several times as we see into his head. The rich history, including its bloody past, pulled Jack into the hotel's embrace. His ties to the hotel are not contractual as much as it is practical. As the boilers depend on him to let off some steam, this Jack isn't the caretaker of forever, and makes Stuart, I told you so Ullman grind his teeth until he finds a new hotel to manage. Retrospective. It's not fair to compare Steven Weber in a limited-budget television miniseries to Jack Nicholson in a feature film directed by Stanley Kubrick. However, we are going to compare how each depicted their character with the time given. Kubrick's vision is an abbreviation of the source material. Jack was what he needed to be in the limited runtime. Kubrick didn't go deep into Jack's relationship with Danny, his personal challenges, nor how the Overlook was his final chance to live a decent life. Stephen King did the opposite. King showed us Jack's weaknesses, his failures, and ultimately and lastly, his sacrifice to save his wife and son. King wanted Jack Torrance to be redeemed after all his stumbles and falls. In my opinion, Kubrick's vision offered a better performance. Yes, it's only the narrative. True, Jack may have been crazy from the start. Perhaps that is what makes it fascinating. When will we see Jack snap? What will happen when all of his restrained anger is released? King's version has the benefit of a more rounded, developed character. That's because we're told in exposition, flashbacks, and more exposition. The problem I had with the King miniseries is this Jack Torrance comes across as a loser with a big L on his forehead. Nicholson comes across as crazy. We don't want to let our eyes off of him. Weber, however, goes from an unemployed wannabe writer to get-rich-quick schemer to a vessel of body possession. I saw King's version of Jack Torrance as more aloof and unsympathetic. Then again, both Jacks were unsympathetic. Let me know in the comments below, who is your favorite Jack Torrance? This is Mr. G of Synergy saying, sometimes your bartender doesn't make the best life coach. Check out other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching.